Warning, this podcast may change the way you think about business, entrepreneurship, and money forever. The Conquistador Podcast was created for dreamers, entrepreneurs, and leaders who want to conquer their future. To be an epic entrepreneur, you must adopt the right mental paradigms as well as master the art of selling, marketing, and finance. Now, it's time to welcome two serial entrepreneurs, leaders, husbands, and fathers who are passionate about sharing the strategies that are helping them excel in life and in business. Here are Mauricio Garcia and Hubert Humphrey.
Well, hello, everybody. Mauricio Garcia here. Welcome to yet another episode of the Conquistador Podcast. As always, I am joined by the great Hubert Humphrey. Hubert, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Just can't wait to be able to jump into another great subject to help train our driven, determined dreamers out there to be great entrepreneurs.
I love it. Nowadays, with so many millions and millions of people chasing their dreams, and they're taking advantage of the the free enterprise system in this country, I think is an exciting time. Today, and so very happy to be able to add value to them. So we talk about vision today. Let's talk about vision. I think that is probably one of the most critical things. I was reading a little bit about how Ray Kroc, and we talked about in the previous podcast, we talked about how he walked into this restaurant that was producing hamburgers within just a few seconds. And he saw that model, he saw that system, but still he didn't have the vision to understand the real business that he was in. He thought he was in the hamburger business, but he was really in a different business. And I think there's other stories like that. I remember, and I'd like us to take us back and maybe talk to us about that story about the CocaCola, because even though the original creator, the founder, the inventor of what is today known as the Coca-Cola, he didn't have that vision. So I want to kind of bring that into the current world, and so that entrepreneurs wake up and maybe realize that they need to somehow make sure that they are doing the best that they can to really grasp on the real vision, like what is the real potential for whatever product or service that they have. I don't know if I did a good introduction there.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying here. I love the story of Coca-Cola. In fact, I challenge people, if they're ever in Atlanta, to be able to go down to downtown Atlanta. They got a historic Coca-Cola pavilion down there. It's got the history center of Coca-Cola, and some of the things we'll talk about here today, you'll be able to go and see some of that history there. But it's amazing. But it's all about vision. It's one thing starts it. Too many people out there want to try to invent something, want to try to create something. I'm telling you, the best thing to do is find something that somebody else has already created, and just be able to take it and make it better and deliver it in a better way at this perfect time right now, and you'll be a whole lot further down the road. But then let's get back to what happened. Way back in 1885, John Pemberton, who was a local pharmacist here, had created something called French. He actually called it French. What do you call it? French wine cola. It was what he called it. It was just a sort of a tonic. He thought it was more medicinal than anything, and he had a big old jug of it, and he would go around and sell it for a few cents a cup, a little glass, and that's sort of what he had. And he fooled around with it. Really couldn't find anybody to invest any money in it, and so after 2 or 3 years, he basically, his health is bad. He ends up selling it to a guy named Asa Candler. Asa Candler, and this is about 2 or 3 years later. And Asa Candler was a pretty good business guy, pretty slick, had some money, had some backers. He saw the product as being something that, people needed some new drink, something in this country. It was a perfect time. So he takes it, and in 1885, when he not 85, but in 1888, when he actually buys it from Pemberton, he goes and builds it in over the next 15 years, into the first great, big, giant industrial company in the United States, and that was the Coca-Cola Company. It got the iconic signature of Coca-Cola, the name, and it became a national company, one of the top companies in the United States at that time. And then he built it up, and then as he got ready to retire, he controlled everything about Coca-Cola. But even then, the Coca-Cola Company had gone from Pemberton's little idea where he's running around pouring glasses out of a jug, to now they had big vats of syrup. They were dispensing it out to these soda fountains all across the country. And by the way, when I was a teenager, I was a soda jerk after school. In fact, Norma used to come in there with all the other girls, and I'd make them a cherry Coke and a vanilla Coke, and we'd have the syrup, and it was dispensed across counters. That was the way it was back in those days. But anyway, what he did is that he was still limited. He didn't see the real future. Now he built it into a great company. Candler's was a great success story, but there were before he retired. There were two little attorneys from Tennessee that just kept bothering him. Month after month, they would kept pestering him that they had a better idea to deliver the Coca-Cola, that they would make the Coca-Cola Company even bigger. Mm-hmm. Well, he didn't want to be bothered with it. His vision was now limited, and he had a bigger vision than Pemberton, but his vision was limited, and he retired. But right before he retired, he goes ahead and gives in and sells the bottling rights, the right to bottle the Coca-Cola into little small bottles, and where it's more portable and it could be sent out to a lot more people. He sold it to them, the rights to that, for $1. And those guys went out and built the great Coca-Cola bottling company, which for a period of time became bigger in value than the Coca-Cola Company did over the years. Mm-hmm. And not too many decades ago, Coca-Cola finally negotiated and bought the bottling company back, and it's now all a part of Coca-Cola. But it was that period of time from literally when was it? Roughly around the 1900s or so, around 1915 is when he retired and sold his bottling rights. And they went out and started getting bottles. And now, next thing you know, you could take it to the beach. You could take Coca-Cola on trips with you. You could get it in different stores. And obviously down the road it became cans and all kind of other things all around the world. But that one little idea that these guys had, it's kind of funny. The first guy just didn't have enough vision to finish it. The second guy had more vision, but he didn't have enough vision to finish it. And the next group had a big vision, how to build on something, how to go out and bottle it. And that's what we've got to look at here in life. I promise you, I've never marketed anything that I've invented. I'm not a creator. Mm-hmm. I'm one of the great copiers of all time. I just make sure I copy the right thing, and then I make sure that I get myself where I'm copyable. If we're in the duplication business, you got to make sure the master copy, number one, is worth duplicating. Number two, it can be duplicated. And number three, that it is duplicated eventually. And so that's what happens with vision. Vision is the key.
Yeah, it's very interesting that, if you go through history and look at all these different companies, not just the McDonald's or the Coca-Cola, but almost in all cases, the original founders lacked the vision to achieve total greatness. In this case, the Coca-Cola really achieved its maximum potential to current date because of the bottling concept that obviously John Pemberton didn't have. Even Asa Candler didn't have. And so look at our business today, and people that are listening to the podcast right now, as they have their business, they may be asking themselves as they listen to us, if they have that vision, if their business can have a different angle to push them to a whole new different world for distribution. I think in the end, what I'm concluding after listening to you is that just like Ray Kroc originally believed that he was in the hamburger business, and even though he was excited about having a system that was so systematized, so much, so simplified that even high school kids could run the entire operation, he didn't understand the real business he was in, which was the real estate, the leasing of the land to the franchisees.
Right.
And so, you know.
Well, and go look at Walt Disney. Walt Disney started out as a great cartoonist. He was a great animator. He would sit there and draw the cartoons. That was his mindset, that he knew that there was a place in our society where people wanted to be entertained, and he would learn to draw out these little figures, and he had seen some others, and he copied something that some other people had started, and he became good at it. And then next thing you know, he turns it into a business of where they actually are drawing these cartoons. Then they learned how to go get them animated and put into film and everything. So he goes from there. Then next thing you know, he sees that he has the Walt Disney television show, because television had become a big new medium. Mm-hmm. And so he goes and starts taking the whole concept of Mickey Mouse and all those great stories that he was putting, that you could only see in a theater on a big screen. He takes it to television and has this wonderful show that went on for many years. And then he envisions something where people could go and see these people coming to life, and he creates Disneyland. Mm-hmm. And he uses television to really promote it. I remember as a little boy watching on live TV the big national phenomenon that the opening of Disneyland was out in Anaheim on television. But he did that. And then he creates the vision of an even bigger park, Disney World. Then he sees the vision of it going all over the world, and now you got Disney Worlds all across several countries. And so it's always about seeing the next vision. And one thing I'll tell you about vision, sometimes the vision is to go back and you've got something great and wonderful, but then you got to go back in time and take something that was really great and bring that back up to match with what you're doing. I look at Amazon. Amazon was virtual. Then all of a sudden he realized that, hey, if I don't do this now, some of these big competitors like Walmart, who've got a lot of physical stores, they're going to eventually get in the virtual side of things, but they've got stores. Mm-hmm. I can be virtual all day long, but I need to have some brick and mortar. So he started going out and setting up brick and mortar operations all across the country, because he went back into the future. His vision, sometimes your vision is to go back and bring back to the future, like that old movie, Back to the Future. So that's what you got to do. Vision is understanding what's needed at the right time and putting it together, because you got to do that to grow. You got to do that to stay competitive in business.
I find a common denominator. At least I'm thinking that I am seeing something different right now. I even invented a word. See what you think about it. I look at vision is always kind of been aligned, or the vision is always about building bigger distribution. As I hear you talk about the Coca-Cola story, all that happened from Pemberton to Candler to the two attorney brothers, Thomas and Whitehead, is that every new vision was just a bigger distribution. Same thing with McDonald's. It was just more distribution. Same thing with Disney. As you were saying, there was the TV. We started with an artist, and then he started seeing this. But the word I came up with right now is called distribution. Is a fusion of vision and distribution. Because I think what I'm trying to get to is that if we go out as business, as entrepreneurs, intentionally looking for ways to build bigger distribution, and that's how the vision gets stretched, not by accident, but looking for channels to get bigger distribution. I would say that maybe you've built such humongous companies in the past because you understood that the name of the game was distribution. And I think if we begin with that in mind, the vision is going to get stretched, because you are always going to look for ways to distribute more and more.
Right. Well, you got to do that. And another thing about all the great companies out there is that it's that old saying, you've got to find a need and fill it. A lot of times people are inventing things and trying to force it out into the marketplace, and there's no demand for it. The public doesn't have a vision that they want it. and it's an idea whose time has not come. There's probably thousands of times more good ideas that have been invented that nobody ever. How about the Edsel? Nobody wanted the Edsel. The Ford car when they created it. And one of his sons was named Edsel, so he named the car after Edsel, and the public didn't want it. So what I'm saying is that you got to make sure you study the public, study the demographics, study the timing, study trends from history and tendencies in the future, and look at something. When we were for example, when A.L. Williams was starting, in the largest industry in the world, you could look out there and see this thing. And I'm gonna give you a quote. If you live by this quote in business, you got a big chance to do something big. And remember this now. If the problem is big enough and the solution is big enough, you have a chance to have one of the great businesses of all time, success stories of all time. So if the problem is big enough and the solution is big enough to match it, solve it, then you got a chance for success, huge success. And I could go over and over. For example, if cancer is a big problem, and it is, and you could come up with a solution to cure cancer, wow, would you not do great things for humanity? And you'd also be very wealthy.
Absolutely.
If so, I look back at the insurance industry. You wouldn't have thought that would have placed somebody like us would have brought a dream-selling, team-building machine into it, but it was the perfect place. There were 100,000 cash value small whole life policies in existence in the largest industry in the world. At that time, it was the only industry that measured its sales in the trillions. And so 100 million policies. And nobody was selling the term insurance of any consequence. Most of the wealthy people who had lots of money were given sort of lowball term by their guys just as a freebie. But nobody was marketing term, which is high coverage, low cost, as opposed to low coverage, high cost, which is what cash value was. So we knew that was a problem that Middle America had. Nobody was serving Middle America. Everybody was after the upper income piece. Middle America was where it was at. So we come up with a delivery system in A.L. Williams and a crusade of buy term. Art had the idea that buy term and invest the difference was a better deal that should replace those whole life policies. And I brought the delivery system of recruiting and building, and we matched that crusade with that delivery system. And we went out there and sold 10 million term policies in an industry that had 100 million. We couldn't get them all. We replaced over 1 million prudential policies, just to give you how powerful this was a ragtag part-time army, little guys, coaches and railroad conductors and football coaches and school teachers, but a system and a crusade did it. So we were in the right place, right time. Problem was big enough. Our solution became as big as the problem. And so that's one thing you got to look at.
Yeah.
And Walt Disney wasn't a problem, but there was a challenge. There wasn't enough really good, wholesome entertainment in America, and so he creates the Disney characters to keep that good feeling amongst the American people, which has lasted a whole century now. And same thing with Ray Kroc. There was housewives were now leaving and going to work. America was on the move. The interstate highway system was now hooked up all across the country. Holiday Inns had just started opening up at every exit. He said, America's on the move, and somebody's got to fix that big problem of feeding America on the move. And that's when he saw that little idea, and he envisioned McDonald's all over the country.
Yeah, there's a courthouse, there's a church, and there's got to be the Golden Arches. I'm fixating on the distribution mentality because as an entrepreneur for all this time, I was kind of just always thinking about how can I just go about selling more. A lot of people entrepreneurship begin in sales. A lot of them, I think. That's sales is like the first step, right? You got to know how to sell and then to make that switch and understanding, well, how do I go from just personally writing more sales from my own pen to get into the distribution paradigm, which is the common denominator of all these businesses. That I look at it now, it's like discovering this code is these businesses are really in the distribution business. And I heard Jody at the conventions say it many, many times. And I think if there's anything I want people to take from today's podcast is that no matter what business they're in, they are in the distribution business.
And you know, you talk about when you started out, you were in sales in the insurance business.
Yeah.
Well, that's distribution, but it was just sort of a limited distribution. You were limited in how many hours you could do a day, and how
I'm
many
thinking
days
as
a
an
week you could
agent,
work.
not as the insurance company. There's a different thing.
Well, the insurance company knew that if the insurance company's distribution model was, I'm just going to have a bunch of independent agents, well, they were limited too, because there's only X number of agents they're going to be able to recruit and manage, and those agents have limited time and effort that they can do. That's why our model of duplication and replication became so revolutionary. We were great disruptors in the industry. And that's another little point that we probably need a podcast on how to become disruptors in an industry, because that's the people that you hear about, the people that you read about in success. They were great disruptors of a stodgy old industry that somebody else started, and probably somebody else dominated for a long time, and then they disrupted it. They brought in new forms of distribution and revolutionary new ideas to it. So that's what.
Replacing. You just mentioned you replaced like millions of Prudential and all these different policies. So it was like, it was a disruption in the concept that went and found old money and converted into the new concept, and still in the distribution business, but it's distribution with disruption.
Well, the reason why the industry couldn't react, you might say, well, why didn't the Prudentials and all these companies?
Yeah, with all that money, with all those deep pockets, right?
Well, the reason is that they had all this money, and they took all this cash value. They were playing bank. The insurance industry they became the invisible banker. They were the largest banking entity in the world in cash value. But they would take that money and they would invest it long-term deals, real estate. You go to any city, all the buildings were owned back in the day by insurance companies. You couldn't go anywhere that it wasn't an insurance company owning a building.
Yeah.
And it was in long-term bonds and investment. So they had their money so tied up in long-term things that they were not flexible. They were entrenched. And when we came along replacing, they could have easily, you would say, well, why don't they invent term insurance? And why don't they have their guys sell it? One is they couldn't, because they had to have that money coming in to keep these long-term debts that they'd set up. So they were in an immobile.
They trapped themselves. Yeah.
And see, there's a motto in business that if you don't eat your own lunch today, somebody else will. So you cannot get so entrenched that you can't change. Something's always got to be able to be mobile and changed, because what's that old saying that in Africa every day a gazelle wakes up knowing that it has to outrun the fastest lion in the jungle. But every day also that lion wakes up and knows that all he's got to do is outrun the slowest gazelle.
Well, I think that pretty much delivers the message today of having vision and understanding the real business we're in, the distribution, disruption. Great story, great analogy with the Coca-Cola company. I think we can all learn from that. And if I want to just let the people know, Hubert, that if they don't want somebody else to eat their lunch, they gotta come to the Conquer event. This is an event that is going to bring the quality of speakers that I have had access to by being part of this mastermind team, by being part of this group. But now it's being put together for every entrepreneur out there, for everybody that really wants to understand what are those secrets, what are those formulas that can help you grow, build more distribution, expand vision, build teams, create systems, everything that you need in order to be a better entrepreneur and have success in business, those topics are going to be covered at the upcoming Conquer event on March 26, 27. The way to register for that, the way to get your virtual ticket is by going to conquerevent.com. Go there now. The page is live. You can buy your ticket today, conquerevent.com. And we also want to thank our sponsor. This podcast would not be possible without their support. And if you're looking to make more money, if you're looking to make your dreams come true, literally, if you want to go from where you are today financially to where you have always wanted to be, check out what HGI has to offer by going to hgiopportunity.com. You heard it right, hgiopportunity.com. Listen to what their value proposition is, and you'll find that what they are doing is enabling people like me learn a skill, a really valuable skill, which is the ability to solve some of the most common financial problems for people out there. And by doing that, by adding that value, we're able to get paid very handsomely in return. So check out their opportunity by going to hgiopportunity.com. It doesn't get any easier than that. And with that, I want to thank everybody for listening to us today. And Hubert, as always, pleasure, my friend, being able to do this, having the opportunity to do these podcasts with you every day. We'll see you tomorrow, hopefully.
All right. Same thing for you. Look forward to seeing everybody later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Warning, this podcast may change the way you think about business, entrepreneurship, and money forever. The Conquistador Podcast was created for dreamers, entrepreneurs, and leaders who want to conquer their future. To be an epic entrepreneur, you must adopt the right mental paradigms as well as master the art of selling, marketing, and finance.